I know I've been stress eating some, and all my routines off. I haven't worked out officially, though climbing up 80 sets of stairs every day is sure giving me my Fitbit says, Bill, you need to take it easy. But anyway, yeah, moving can be, and it's really like anything else that's out of the routine, out of the norm.
Yes.
I mean, it can be a holiday, it can be a
Mhm.
stint in the hospital. It could be your wife's stint in the hospital, um, vacation, all kinds of things that throw you off. Mike, this week is, and the past couple weeks, and a couple weeks to come, are moving my house. But I think the important thing is we talked about this a couple weeks ago, realizing that when you start and go on this journey, it's it's supposed to be able to handle, react to, or adapt to whatever life is throwing at you.
Hmm.
If it doesn't, then you have to be a one-dimensional person. And most of the good things in life don't come that way. So I've gone up and down and up and down and up and down 100 times emotionally with this move, saying goodbye to my house, the familiarity and all that. But I've been pretty focused on not letting it disrupt my attention to how I eat, how I move, how I think, how I relax, how I keep my mental stability, and it's difficult, but I've been pretty proud of myself. And my wife has helped me out a lot. There have been moments, but uh,
I think for me, it's you just said that it was sort of like just because I had my move just lately. It's as a personal trainer, you think I exercise all the time, but during that move, I didn't exercise at all. I didn't go to the gym. I didn't, my uh, I love mountain biking. Mountain bike was sort of needed to go to the shop to get fixed, and I didn't do it all summer. Um, and it was rough. It was rough not adding that what I love, continuing to do what I love in some way, and I didn't do it. And I think it took until, let's say I moved in June of 2024. It wasn't until October that I started feeling like I wanted to start exercising again. Because again, I had to find
oh,
my new patterns, find my new life. I had to find everything. And it just, and it, I gained weight. I became a little bit less, energized because of it. But the thing is, I've exercised for years. So for me, it was sort of like I knew I'd get back to it. And there was a point where I actually missed it. I actually genuinely, I remember sitting going, I really miss
that's it.
exercise. And then, and the first time I went back, it sucked. It sucked so hard because in my head, I thought I was still who I was, when I was in the
Mm.
peak of exercise. And I wasn't even close. I had to ratchet it down 70% from where I had been and start over again. Um, and it felt good and it was a little, but it was I kind of get where you're going, sort of like, okay, life does this, and for me it was like, okay, I know I'll get back to it, and I think that was the basis of having that foundation of doing it in the past is sort of like I know I'll get back to it. And it's what I tell my clients is when you go from feeling like you have to exercise to feeling like you want to exercise, and I call it the one-way valve is once you get past that, you say, I want to exercise. Even if there's 6 or 7 months where you're not exercising for whatever reason, there's still a desire to want to go do it and you will get back to it. So for me, it's sort of if you're somebody in that position of I'm having to just do this and having to do this, it will change. It does change. Your
Yeah,
body will respond in a way. And and it doesn't matter what's going on in your world, you'll get back to it. So and you find a new pattern, you find a new way to do it all, but you'll do it. Now, but for me, I'm still working off of, I'm working off, um, summer fat, which is rare
yeah,
for me. I'm a winter fat person, but I guess let's say. But that was a difficult transition to make, and I'm probably gonna have to make it again in the next couple of years. So I'm trying to keep myself level around all of that. You know,
Well, I can tell you, it's not just like you moving. So, like Bill's moving to a new place, you move to a new place. Um, my partner recently moved in with me, and
oh wow,
yeah, and she's absolutely wonderful and an amazing person to live with. But it's still, you're right, it changes all of your patterns. So,
hmm
I would get up at 3 o'clock in the morning and then just turn on the TV, turn on music, whatever, and I'd start my day. By 4 o'clock, it was already second cup of coffee, and I was going full charge. Um, not so much anymore because she doesn't get up at 4. and, uh, so now I've got to, make sure I close the door and keep the lights down, and not make so much noise, and it really does change your patterns. And I think that's one of those things where, tying this back to bariatric, right, is that you had a pattern before you had your surgery. You had a pattern of eating, a pattern of going to restaurants, a pattern of the kind of food that you would select, and then you go through the surgery, and it totally changes your patterns, and it changes them forever. Now, you'll get accustomed to it, right? It becomes your new pattern, but dang, it's changing all the time. It, it keeps changing. It's like, who moved my cheese? Stop pulling the rug off my me, all those cliches, right? But but I think that you're exactly right, is that it's that pattern shift that's so different. You in your new place, when you go to the grocery store, that your favorite grocery store, it's a different way back to your place, right? You drive a different route, and that's disruptive. And it feels like chaos to me, and
hmm
I chaos and like, why do I have to learn this? And I'd rather focus my energy on other things. And oof. Um, but when it comes to like bariatric, with the eating patterns um, and just how your body processes food, right? Because when do you go to the bathroom? When do eat? When are you hungry? Those types of things, and then uh, all of those patterns change, and they keep changing. But it's fun. I mean, it's fun if you embrace it, right? And I think that that's really kind of the key, is that you need to embrace it,
You
because
have to.
it's going to happen, right, Bill?
You have to, and they don't. I shouldn't say it that way. I believe that it isn't taught enough, either in all places correctly or where it's taught thoroughly enough, because that is the art of self-management. And so many times, you see people, when will I be able to do this again? Or when will that stop? Or as if it's always the same for every person.
Right.
And I understand why the medicine or why all the communication is kind of standardized. But if if it's in a format that isn't, you're not understanding, it's obviously not going to help you.
Right. Exactly right.
Because yeah, that's, to me, that's the whole secret sauce right there. Is it's not exercise, it's knowing when, where, how to work it into your life. It's not eating the same way every day, it's eating the correct way for the day you're having or you're going to have. And, thinking
hmm
that the bad news, I guess, is that it puts a lot more pressure and responsibility on the patient. The good news is it's all you, man. And as long as you're alive, you have access to you. So, I think of it as a good thing that I'd like to see more people kind of shaken and told, hey, man, you've always had the power. It's in those movie red slippers you're wearing. You've always had the power. And
Mhm.
that the industry would help people find their power more than somehow deliver magic, if you will. Anyway, I'm off on a rant there, but
No, I think
that's
you're right. I think people want a recipe as
yes,
opposed to guardrails,
I
right?
love it.
And
Yeah.
because I can follow a recipe, no problem. But guardrails, what? And
Yeah,
the thing is, those guardrails adjust um, from external inputs, and you have to adapt. Um, and with a recipe, right, you're assuming that every input is the same, every day is the same, everything is the same.
right.
But with guardrails, you can be way over here, way over there, and then suddenly those guardrails shift, and you're like, I was just almost had this lane figured out.
Right.
Um, but
Yeah.
but I'm sure, Jeff, I'm sure you deal with that a lot, where people go from that,
Mhm.
oh, I have to work out or I want to work out, and then they kind of get over that hump in exercising where it becomes fun, or now they start to set goals. I'm sure you see that all the time.
Yeah, you do see that with the goals. I think it's I think going back to sort of that change happens a lot. And it happens, and I think the thing is it happens everybody's well, what's the one consistency in the universe is there is no consistency in the universe. Yeah. But I think you're right, you get a lot of people that are exercising. I think if you're going to put it into a change part, which seems to be the theme of the day, is is being open to the change. And this is sort of, I guess, this is like going back to the Buddhist way of doing things, which is, just do what you have to do and let the universe, let the world move around you, kind of thing. Don't
Yeah,
cling. So that whole, and I think this is a, this is great for people going through bariatric surgery, is the idea that you can't control certain things. You know, your body's going to do certain things, right? You can't control it. Exercise is the same way. And if I'm going to talk about exercise and the fact that with injuries, oh God, I hate injuries, because injuries, they always put you down. Or it's that idea that things will change, and you have to be ready for it. And I think Bill was onto something when he's like, I don't think the healthcare industry puts enough emphasis on that
right,
this is a life change. This is a life change. But I don't think, and it's also, I would think it'd be very difficult to actually, I don't think I want to throw all my blame on them, because what does that mean? If you're somebody who's about to go to bariatric surgery and you say this is a life change, like you look at that and go, what does that mean? Like, I don't
hmm
understand what a life, because your life is like this, going down this path. And it's hard to see what something different looks like. And I can see when you're on the other side of it, you're like, oh shit, I don't know what to do. And I can see
yeah,
people struggling, people looking for answers, looking for recipes, instead of guardrails. And I don't know. I think it's just that's why. I mean, from what I talk to my clients around the exercise aspect, it's like you don't need a goal right away. You will get to a
right,
goal, but right now you just need to be consistent in what you do, and you'll get to that point. Um, so I think, uh, what changes scary stuff is it doesn't come out. I think when you hear that, I always think about scary, like the monster under the bed kid scary, and that's not the scary it is. It's just sort of like it's the unknown scary. Everybody's used to the devil that they know. They'd rather just be used to what they do know. And then you have to use like, no, you have to meet the devil that you don't know. And honestly,
right,
you're and this is what I tell a lot of my clients. And I have to tell myself this sometimes in some respect. It's like the devil you created in your head is about 10 times worse than the reality. You know, if you're, oh, I can't eat this. It's like, no, well, I think you've made this devil to be a lot bigger and a lot angrier and a lot more evil than it really is. And once you step into it, it's not as bad as it's going to be. And I don't know, that makes sense. Have you guys felt that in any way?
yeah. better the devil you know than the devil you don't, right? And
Yeah.
I have I have met a lot of challenges along the way, and
Mhm.
you know, my initial reaction was, oh, I don't want to do this again, or I don't want to go through this again, or I don't want to, or why more? When does it ever even out?
Yeah.
Um, and we talked about this in an earlier podcast where we said, you know, it's a challenge every day, but it's just one step at a time, and embrace the change, right? Embrace the challenge. And because you can approach it with that, I don't want to do this attitude, and it's going to hurt. But you can also approach it with, oh, this is new, yuck, and keep moving forward, right? But
Yeah,
but even for Bill, I'm sure that you've got that out there.
yeah, and I think the one mental trick that I know I've employed and has helped me a lot when I have a task like that I just don't want to do, or there's some mental block about the challenge, whether I'm afraid or anything along that spectrum. If I tell myself, wait a minute, there's a lesson to learn in there, there's wisdom in there, that's kind of like telling me that I've kind of got a winning lottery ticket if I just go cash it in. And it's going to involve getting in my car and going to the store and going, there's an effort involved. And I kind of don't want to do that. But if I keep reminding myself that I'm going to level up a little bit by getting through it, then that's always helped me. Now
Uh,
that works for me. I don't know if it'll help other people, but if it just seems like this is something I have to do just because there's no amount of self-talk that I can seem to do to get it done. But when I think, there's a reward for me on the other side, it helps. So that'd be my tip of the day.
well, that is a good one, and that's exactly right. It's embracing that challenge and finding. Well, I mean, I'm not really fond of this cliche, but it's that silver lining, right? Um, that even though this is a challenge I don't want to deal with, I'm going to have to deal with it, but I don't want to deal with it. I'm upset, angry, all those negative emotions. Um, but turn that around and say, well, okay, yes, this is going to be a hassle. It's going to be difficult, but there's something to be learned here. And that ultimately will benefit me. And then I can use that even so, like where Bill, like you're engaged with um, the weight loss foundation and all of that, and Jeff's engaged with other people who are um, you know wanting to improve their physical health. Even when you come up against something like that and you grind through it and it's horrible, you're going to be able to identify it earlier, sooner, faster the next time, and mentally prepare yourself because this is how I'm going to deal with it, and this is how I'm going to get over it, and I know that I will because I already have.
You have a track record.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was just about to bring up about what Bill was saying and what you just brought up, Richard, which was, my thought is it's like once you go through something like that, this is that journal, just sort of like write it down or think about what you went through and what you learned from it. Take time to actually pay attention to the other side of what that challenge was, because you get this, because I think, Bill, you're right. You get to say, well, I get to learn something. That's the start. The other part of that is like, what did I learn? Now I'm on the other side of the move. What did I learn about myself? What did I learn about this? Whatever it is, it could be something as simple as dumping. Well, I learned something. What did I learn? Don't eat that ever again. It could be something easy like that, or it could be something huge, like a relationship change or anything like that. But I think a lot of the times people don't review what happened. You're like, oh, I'm through it. I'm back to normal. I'm settled. Let's move on. And I think sometimes you have to go back, especially early on, like you were just saying, you have to, once you review it and you can see the positives that come out, because nothing is 100% negative and nothing is 100% positive, the old yin yang thing. But hitting Buddhist stuff today and hitting Zen stuff all over today. Um, but it's the idea that there always is, like Bill said, there's always something you've learned about yourself and about it. And if you don't take time to pay it to review it and figure out what it is, or ask the people around you what, if it's a big thing, it's like, how have you seen me change? Like, what changes have you seen in me? Because sometimes you can't see it yourself. But yeah, I think that's a great sort of a silver lining, or even a carrot, the carrot put in front of you to say, okay, I've got to, the difficulty is the way, but that doesn't make it any easier. So what am I going to learn from this on the other side? I like that, Bill. I like that a
And
lot.
like you said, Jeff, half the time the fear is far greater than the reality.
Mhm.
And some percentage of the time, it's not even really real. It's not even
Yeah.
there. And rarely is it worse than your anticipation. So, yeah, I, I intellectually, I want to embrace the mentality of facing those fears, running toward the fears. Um, but and some days I do, and then other days, I hide because I'm human. And some days I wake up ready to charge hell with a water gun, and some days I just want to pick flowers. But I do like the the mentality of running toward your fears.
Yeah. I think the other part is, I was just thinking is, I think part of not facing fears is that it's an act of self vulnerability, that you have to tell yourself, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing, but I still have to do this. And I think that's a lot of it. I think a lot of fear is just because you just don't know. You're like, what do I do? And in some cases, it's like, okay, so you have to reach out and find other people to help you with this. And you have to open up to that. And sometimes it's like, okay, well, you have to figure out where that's coming from. But I think a lot of fear is just unknown. And it could be, I don't know what to do. I just don't know what to do. And and sometimes you just don't know until you're in the middle of doing it. It's like, okay, well, you don't know what to do. Well, just take one step forward in a direction. It may be the complete wrong direction, but it's a movement instead of just sitting there going, I don't know what to do. Right.
So that brings up an interesting thought. So I'm going to approach it from two sides, right? So it's like run towards your fears because uncertainty causes chaos and dread and those types of things. So run towards your fears, but is it also a control thing? Do you feel like if I'm seeking out my fear, if I'm going to embrace this and deal with it, that I at least have some control in the situation, and I've reduced the uncertainty because I'm proactive as opposed to reactive. And even if I'm wrong, even if I take that step and it's in the wrong direction, at least I decided to take the step. It wasn't forced upon me. And so I think that like what Bill's saying, run toward your fears. It, for me, it feels like I have more control when I do that, even if I'm wrong. But at least I was wrong, right? That I was the one who was wrong. I decided I didn't let the bad thing just happen or the challenge just happen. I was engaged.
Right. There's a phrase I saw that said, experience comes when you didn't get what you expected. Which
Oh
is
my
really,
gosh. Well, I'm experienced.
most people are. I think that's what
You're,
it's sort of that. I'm gonna go this way and I expect it. Nope, that didn't happen. But hey, I learned something from it, right? You know, and hopefully it's not too painful. It's not too painful of an education. But yeah, I think just do something. And it's paralysis through fear is probably the worst thing ever. And and I guess the other part of it is like if you just don't know, if you have no clue where to start, there's always someone who does. There's always someone who will give you a thought. You may not know, but there's always, and if you're one of these people, and especially if we're talking to men, if you're one of these people that feel like you have to do it all yourself, I'm going to be blunt and say you're fucked. You can't do it by yourself. You can't, and you
Yeah.
shouldn't. Shouldn't feel like you have to either. There's always somebody. Hell, you can get one of our email addresses. We'll push it in a direction one way or the other. Um, but there's
Yeah.
always somebody there, right?
Right.
And
Yeah,
You
that's
can't.
that's that whole idea of support group,
Right.
that
yeah,
you're engaging with people who have similar experiences and they're in different phases of their journey. And maybe you're not there yet, or maybe you have information you can share with someone else that would be vital to them. And that's why those support groups are so important. I,
yeah,
I just,
It's one of the things that I wish a lot of the support groups had a wider range of members, pre-ops, recent,
hmm
long-term. Unfortunately, a lot of long-term people just drop out of the networking.
yeah,
Um, Either for a lot of reasons, and that's a shame because we have a lot of experience we can pass along. Live off, learn from our mistake. Don't make it yourself. But also, I can live on your new energy. Your new. It can be a reminder to me when you're going through certain things that I've forgotten about. But maybe I should remember. Maybe I should bring them up every now and then in my mind to keep me on track or whatever. So talking with pre-ops, pre and post-ops is good for me as it is good for them.
yeah,
Yeah,
100%. I think that
definitely.
mixture is huge, and it doesn't happen.
Too many of
Unfortunately,
the
you're right.
groups are all one level. Too
Yeah,
many of the groups end up with people all at one level, 1 year
yeah,
out, years out, that kind of thing. I'm sorry,
and they all
I
ask,
interrupted.
that's like they all ask the same questions, which is valid.
Well,
You all ask the same questions, but it's sometimes nice to have somebody who's been further out. So, yeah, and yeah, so you can't do it alone. You can't. You just
mhm.
can't. And you don't need tons of people. Even just one other person
No, right,
that
right.
understands, right? You don't, and it's just, and it doesn't even, the person can just be there to bounce ideas off of. So, um, I guess I'm pushing that a lot because I kind of feel some people feel like they're on their own with a lot of things in their world, whether it's bariatric surgery or anything else. And we're hardwired to not be independent like that. So,
right.
you know, you're always going to fail if you're going to try to do it all of it by yourself. Um, that's my, so find somebody, even if it's just temporarily. So there's my after school special statement. Um, what else we got?
I wanted to, I know we could probably do an entire podcast on this one. So I want to just kind of throw this up to you guys. Um, Supplements, uh, like vitamins, other supplements. I belong to one support group that is a gluten intolerant group. And I mean, these people are like seriously gluten intolerant. And they eat very differently than we do. They have to be really sensitive. There's one person in that group who she can't even go into a bakery because the gluten that's in the air gets on her skin and she reacts to it.
Mm.
Yeah, it's really nasty. It's a horrible affliction. And I'm not sure how I stumbled on them, but I did. And I've learned more about eating from that group than any other group I've ever been part of. And they have insight into digestion and things like that that are really important because bariatric patients suffer from malabsorption.
Yeah.
And so that's why supplements are so critical. But supplements also kind of have their own downside or nastiness to them. Some can be pretty minimal, some are more. But like I learned about ox bile, which is a bile replacement. So when people have their gallbladder removed, they no longer produce bile. And bile is an important component of digestion. Well, if you do Roux-en-Y, you've bifurcated the stomach and you don't get the bile. It doesn't come in the same way. So I started taking a bile supplement. Wow, it made such a huge difference. The same thing with HCl, hydrochloric acid, which is a stomach acid, right? I mean, it's an acid produced by your stomach. Well, you don't get it the same way. And so I started taking an HCl supplement. Again, I was like, where's this magic been all my life? Even though I only actually have needed it for the last couple of years. But there's things like that that just make such an improvement. And I don't know what your experience is, Bill or Jeff, what you recommend is in terms of supplements. But those are the ones I found through my gluten intolerant group.
What does what is your symptom? And what does these two medications, what's the
Right.
improvement?
What problem is it solving, right? So a lot of it was just cramping that when I would eat, and then I would get cramping as this food was being moved through the system because it wasn't being pre-treated, right? It wasn't getting the acid, it wasn't getting the bile. And so I was getting a lot of cramping, and it made bowel movements really painful, but also, unfortunately, really unpredictable too, because there'd be something where a certain combination of food would get to a point in my intestine and colon, and all of a sudden it was like, oh no. And I would, if I wasn't 2 steps from a bathroom, I was going home ashamed, right?
That's horrible.
Oh yeah, it really wrecked me. And it was difficult, like when I was hanging out with my daughters, and if we wanted to go do anything, I couldn't. Or I was like stopping in every bathroom just as more of a proactive measure. And one of my daughters said to me later, she said, that was the most miserable week I've ever spent. You were always in the bathroom. I know. It was miserable for me too. Hey. But the ox bile and the hydrochloric acid have corrected that issue for me. And so now my bowel movements are more predictable. They're not painful like they were. I don't get the cramping that I used to get. I also was for a while taking probiotics. I'm not sure how much benefit I got from that because I changed the way that I eat. I'm a very mindful eater now because I can only take 3 bites. So I want to take the best 3 bites.
Yeah.
So I'm much more planful. I'm sorry, Jeff, what were you going to say?
Oh, I just wanted to throw a caveat in there to say that we're not doctors. If these are interesting things for you, please talk to your physician.
Thank you. Yes. Talk to your healthcare provider because you're right. I'm self-medicating, and I'll admit that. And it may not work for everybody. And in fact, I know that it doesn't work for everybody. But those were the kinds of things that I found. And I didn't even know they existed.
I've never heard of them.
Yeah. I didn't even know.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting. I have a couple of clients that I may tell them to talk to a doctor about those things because it may work for them. It may not, but I'll at least give them the information to pass on to their physician. So thank you for
And
that.
that's
Yeah.
It's always fun when I go to my primary care because I'm a conundrum to him. My A1 was below 4.2%. He said, I've heard of that. I've never seen it. And, so there's a lot of other things like that. And so I really enjoy going in and saying, okay, doc, how about ox bile? What's that going to do for me? And he's like, huh? Never heard of it. Right. And so he had to look it up. He had to do his research. And it's always fun to kind of catch him a little bit like that and put him on his heels. It also makes me feel like I'm more in control of my healthcare, right? My own health outcomes.
Right.
So yeah, that's a great idea. Make sure you check with your physician before you make any changes to your medications or supplements.
Okay.
And that's the thing, like people don't consider supplements medication, right? They think, oh, it's natural. It's, the best example is St. John's wort. Oh, it's just a plant. St. John's wort messes with more medications than any other supplement additive that I'm aware of. They're like, don't take St. John's wort if you're taking this, and don't because it actually breaks it down.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there's a dearth of information around supplements. I think people, um, for me with my clients, I only, protein obviously is a protein supplement because of bariatrics. Um, and then I'll tell people to consider, if strength training, consider creatine. But I don't push supplements on any of the clients. It's up to them to decide whether they want to do it. It's up to them and their doctors to decide whether it's good for them. Um, but I think a lot of people do it. A lot of, and there's in your case, it worked out, which is fantastic. I'm happy for you, Richard, because that makes a world of difference. Um,
Yeah.
but for me, I'm not a big supplement guy. For one thing, I
Mm.
think they're expensive. And I'm also a very skeptical human in general. So when someone tells me something is great for me, my first reaction is, that's wonderful. My first reaction is bullshit, which isn't a very healthy way to live life. I should be a little bit more believing of humans. But I think there's been too many shysters in the world to make me feel comfortable with stuff like supplements. But I think it's an interesting topic, and I think bariatric people have you know, feel like they should go that route. But sometimes it's great. I think learning more about it's a great way to go.
Yeah, and you're right. I don't know that they're for everybody. But if you're having problems, there's something out there that can help you. You just need to find it. You don't have to deal with it. Like when I was cramping, when I would eat and because my digestion wasn't working right. And
Mhm.
I knew that there was something that would help me. I just didn't know what it was. And so it was, again, to Bill's point, there's somebody who does.
Right. Yeah, I guess it does go back to that whole idea. It's like you can't do this alone in a vacuum. You've got to at least go out and talk to people about things. And sometimes your physician doesn't know, but don't leave them out of the equation if you're going to be doing stuff. Bring them definitely into the equation if you're going to be making changes like that. So yeah.
So I was taking one medication. This is a case in point. So I was taking one medication, and my doctor says, don't use any of the nasal decongestants or nasal antihistamines. Like,
Mhm.
huh? How do these two things have anything to do with each other? Well, it turns out that they do. And when I read the information about the medication that I was going to be taking, it wasn't in there.
Really?
But it was in the precautions that the doctor had because there was some anecdotal information around that. And so the drug company wasn't going to put it in there, right? They're not going to say, and don't use nasal antihistamines because they make those too. And so they're not going to put that in there. But when the doc looked it up in the computer system, it said, oh, and by the way, caution. So that's a really good point. Yeah. Make sure that you're always checking with the healthcare provider.
Totally. 100%. 100%. That's a good one. Thanks for, I think those are great ideas. And the idea that even one support group isn't going to give you all information is
Right.
sometimes you reach out to other people or just look things up in different ways. I think, yeah, that's fantastic. You gave that information out. So if anything, thanks for that, Richard. That was awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So check with the gluten intolerance group. There are a lot of great information about eating.
Yeah, actually, I bet there's some great stuff. Um, what else we got? Or should we just call it a good one?
I'm tapped for the day.
I'll share one thing that I have long wondered why the weight loss surgery community at times, or maybe I say it differently, the weight loss community, like Weight Watchers, uh, Noam, and all those other ones, have often felt at odds with weight loss surgery. I was at a conference once, and I won't say the name, but one of those groups would not even talk to me about the weather or sports, feeling that we were in competition. And my point to them was, you're not competition. You're the nutritional side of a weight loss surgery lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
You and us should be like this.
Yeah.
A lot of times, the things you do, Jeff, people get in bariatrics and they think about the workout side of it. And the nutrition part just ends up being so many grams of protein, limit to this many calories, and not the same level of understanding why you're doing what you're doing, that people will ask you about. Why do I do this instead of sit-ups? Why do I lift weights instead of this? Or, So I just had this week two conversations with people from the nutritional world wanting to get more involved in the bariatric world. So I just sending it out there to the universe that there's some connections going on, and hopefully that'll pick up, because I think that that's a big, weak, and vulnerable area for most weight loss surgery patients. Exercise, people get, I don't like it, I don't want to, but they understand it. And nutrition, people are just, I don't know, give me a plan. And so, like I said, I just want to throw out there that, and to anybody that would ever hear this, let's find ways to make Weight Watchers and the other Jenny Craig, those kind of people, part of us rather than seeming like competitors.
Right. I think I kind of go ahead.
I'd just say that's the end of my public service announcement.
I kind of wonder if there's a feeling of there's just speculation um of like, well, if you did lost surgery, then I can't make money off of you. I don't know if there's any validity to that, or it's just, again, I told you I'm a skeptic, so everything's like, So,
Yeah.
but you're right. There is a there's an ability. There's a chance to. It's all connected, right? It's all the same thing. Everybody wants the same thing. You want to be healthy.
It's a science of eating, right?
Yeah,
It's a science of eating, and maximizing the benefit from the food value, or from the caloric value that you're consuming, right? So you can do 1,000 calories in donuts or 1,000 calories in steak. It's still 1,000 calories, right? And your body doesn't differentiate between a calorie of donuts and a calorie of steak. It's still a calorie, but the benefit to your system, the benefit to your body, is insanely different. And so, Bill, to your point, I think the various companies that offer nutritional guidance, right, or meal plans, they don't see themselves as food scientists. of maximizing your caloric benefit. They see themselves as you follow the plan, you lose weight. Well, if you've had surgery, why do you need to lose weight? You've had surgery. It's not about the weight. It's about the nutrition, right? But actually, I will say a little endorsement here, but there's a book called The Noom Mindset, Noom. And you've heard of Noom, right? I mean, it's that, and now they're advertising GLP-1s and all this other. But anyway, the book, The Noom Mindset, is a really interesting book on a psychological approach to eating. And so, Bill, to your point, I think the way that you would bring in those various companies that are similar to Weight Watchers, where they're more about nutrition guidance, is that it's just as important, if not more so, post-surgery.
Mm-hmm.
Because I can't make up for it with bulk.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there's direct bill. There's room to be had there. And I think some people, like to, I always say, lift their leg on their corner and don't allow anybody in or out. And there's a whole competition that doesn't need to be there. And it's at the detriment of people just looking for good, simple answers. That's a rant I won't go down. But in terms of exercise and nutrition, there's so many damn competing, confusing things out there that I get it. I get it why people are like, I have no idea what to do. I have no idea. So I'm not going to go down that rant. Not today. We're an hour in, and most people are falling asleep anyway. So wake up. Um, but yeah, I like it. If people have ideas on how to make those changes better, I think I'd love to hear those too. So, but let's end it there.
Sounds good.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
It's a good,
Sure.
good conversation.
Good conversation. I appreciate it. So thanks, and I will see you all hopefully at the